Hello everyone, my name is G. Saran Kumar and my registration number is 20MIS0075. In this video, I want to talk about one of the important and most used pattern, which is known as factory method pattern. So, before starting about the factory method pattern, let me discuss about what is design pattern basically. A design pattern names the abstract and identifies the key aspects of the design structure, which is very useful for creating the reusable objects design. And it basically gives you a proper structure of making any code reusable. And the design pattern basically identifies the participation of the classes and interfaces and their roles and their collaborations. Each pattern focuses on a particular object-oriented design problem or an issue. And another main important point is that it is applied in a view of other design constraints and consequences to trade off its use. Eventually implementing our design pattern also provides a sample C++ or a small tab code to illustrate an implementation. Design patterns are the solutions to the general problems that a software developer faced during software development. And the main common problem occurs in the software design is that the pattern typically shows the relationships and interactions between the classes and the objects. This is what design patterns are. And there are three types of design patterns. They are creational, structural, and behavioral. In creational patterns, patterns are designed for class initialization. They can be either class creation patterns or object creational patterns. Whereas structural patterns are the patterns which designed with regard to the class structure and its composition. The main goal of the pattern is to increase the functionality of the classes which are involved without changing much of its composition. And the last one is behavioral pattern. These patterns are defined depending on how one class communicates with the other. Though now we'll discuss about the factory pattern. Factory pattern is a part of the creational pattern. As we discussed in creational patterns, uh, we either create a class or an object-oriented creational patterns. So this is about the pattern. And before writing about the patterns, we need to take a look of this. This is the structure how we should write the pattern. Like first, we should write the intent of the scenario, motivation, applicability, structure, who are the participants involved in the structure, collaborations, consequences, and the implementation issues. So we'll discuss this in the later in depth. Mainly, the intent of this pattern is to define an interface for creating the objects. Like it defines an interface for creating the objects, but subclasses divide which class is to initiate. Factory method is a class which differ implementation of the subclasses, and it is also known as the virtual constructor. Now the main motivation is that the frameworks use abstract classes to define mainly relationship between the objects. A framework is often responsible for creating the objects of all. And so considering the frameworks in the application, we can present the documents to the users to key abstraction in the framework of the classed abstractions in the document. Here, both classes and the abstract and the clients have subclasses to reduce or realize the application's implementations. To create the drawing application, for example, we define a class drawing application and a drawing document. The application class is responsible for managing the documents and will create the required when the user selects to open and view the menu. And because the particular document subclasses is to instantiate is applicable significance, The application class is responsible for managing the documents, and application class is the only known which a new document should be created, not what kind of document to be created. It creates the dilemma. The framework must instantiate the classes, but it only knows about the abstract classes which can initiate. And another one is that in another scenario we can say that the sending the notification to the users, where there are two ways in which user can receive the notifications is by either by email or either by SMS and etc. And this is the basic structure of the motivation like document and application. So this is the user defined thing. My document and my application are the interfaces where the user can create the document, and the creating the document, new document and open document is all uh, demonstrated in the application. And the document module is to whether to open the document or whether to close the document or save the document or retrieve the document. So this is the basic structure of the motivation which we have discussed right now, like a drawing application or a document viewer application. And now coming to the applicability, we will use this factory method pattern when a class anticipates the class objects it must create, and a class wants its subclasses to specify the objects it creates, and classes delegate the responsibility to one of the several helper subclasses, and you want to localize the knowledge of which helper subclasses in the delegate. And now coming to the structure, so this is the basic structure how the product should be there, like a product and the create product and the creator and the concrete creator, for which creator uses a factory method operation, concrete creator uses the factory method operation, and the concrete product and the product. So this is a basic structure of the factory method pattern. And now coming to the participants, here the participants are the product, concrete product, creator and the concrete creator. The product is the document, concrete product is the my document module, and the creator is the application, and concrete creator is the my application. In product, we basically defines the interfaces of the objects in the factory method, and in concrete product, we implements the products interface. In the creator, we declares the factory method which returns object to the type of the products. Creator may also define the implementations, and in the concrete creator, we overwrites the factory method and return its instances and the concrete product. And now coming to the collaborations. Uh, the creator relies its subclasses to define the product method so that it returns as instances of appropriate concrete product. And the main consequences of this are provides the hook for the substances. Providing for the hook for the substances is nothing but the creating objects in the class with a factory method, which is always more flexible for creating the objects directly. Factor methods give a substantiating uh, subclasses which provide the external vision of a document. For example, document class could define a factory method called create file dialog that creates the default file objects for the operating the entire document. And a document subclasses can define an application specifically like overriding and overwriting functions. And another consequence is to creating the parallel class hierarchies. Creating parallel class hierarchies, we will discuss it with an example. Like we considering so far that the factory method is called as the creators, but this is does not have the parallel class hierarchies. So parallel class hierarchies results when a class delegates some of the responsibilities to superclass, considering the graphical figure, and that can be manipulated interactively, and uh, they are selected, moved or rotated. The implementation they implement in such a way that it isn't easy. it requires strong and updation information needed only during the different figures behave differently for the manipulating. And example is like a stretching a line figure might have effect uh, moving the end point, whereas stretching the figure that may change the line spacing. So basically, this is one of the consequences that provides. Now we are coming to the main part is like that implementation issues is the main part which we have to discuss well. The first implementation issues are about two major varieties: parameterized factory methods, language spacing variants and issues, and how we can use the templates, and naming the conversations. So, firstly, let us discuss about the how to measure varieties. Like when a number of factory methods are implemented, uh, the reducing the number of the classes, even when we have the separate classes, the whole node and the half node, probably the different bitmaps and the duration tool which is initiated the whole node. Like in the two varieties we can basically give an example of how to uh, implement. And the next implementation is when a creator class in the abstract class does not provide the implementation for the factory method, abstract class defines only the implementation. And the next implementation issue is that the parameterizing the factory methods. Another variation of the pattern is let the factory method multiplies the products and uh, multiply the product. The factory method takes the parameter to identify the objects to create. The factory method takes the identifiers of the object to create. All objects in the factory method creates will share about the product interface in the document. For example, application might be differ kinds of documents. You can pass create object and instantiate the wish issue. And like language specific variations, mainly language specific variation is nothing but the different languages lend themselves to one another, initiating the variations and the queries. Small talk programs is the method that return the classes to the objects and initiated. A concrete factory method use the value to create a product and concrete to store the computed to its value. The result even later binding the type of concrete product is initiated. And next one is the naming conversions. As we have mentioned the potential problems of the factory method, the the factory method might force you to subclass uh, just to create the appropriate products, and another way is to get you in the C++ is to provide a template subclasses to the creator for the parameterized by the product class. And like it's a and naming conversations is nothing but it's a good practice for the naming conversation that makes you clear about the factory methods. For example, like McCap, McCap is an application framework which declares abstract operations that defines the factory method, and it is a class of the product class. It is known as the naming conversions. Yeah, that's the last point of the issues. So with this, we'll end the topic. And the main, the overall scenario is that uh, factory pattern is a type of a part of a creational pattern, and it is mainly used to create the objects. But subclasses decide which class to initiate. That's it. So thank you.